Have I got any water? I didn't have any water for my sleeping pills last night.
Yes, dear, you did. I put it out myself.
Oh, then I didn't have any the night before.
I'll bring you some.
Empty. I was just bringing it out to fill it.
There's the basin. Give it to me.
I've already taken my pills. There was just enough water. You better put them back. I might forget and take them again. I did once.
It would be safer if I kept the pills and gave you 2 each night.
I'm not a child, dear. I'm always very careful. It's you that has to be careful. I mean, if you leave them out and have taken them already, and then I wake up in the night and see them...
Yes, dear.
I might forget and think that I had to take them.
Yes, dear. If you want anything, don't try to get up. Just bang on the wall. Good night.
Good night.
Mrs. Williams? You up, Mrs. Williams? Mrs. Williams?
Oh, my God.
Dr. Hardy.
Hello, Major.
What are you doing here? I didn't know you were coming today.
I came to see your wife.
Oh? Is she unwell? She didn't say anything to me.
I'm afraid I've got rather a shock for you, Major.
Has something happened to her?
I'm afraid your wife is dead.
She can't be. I mean, she was perfectly all right last night.
As far as I can tell, she must have had a heart attack during the night. Miss Hyde found her when she came in and called me.
You're sure, are you?
I'm afraid so.
No. It's not possible. Not her. That's not possible.
She must have gone in an instant. She was sitting on the side of the bed. She didn't even have time to lie down.
When? Do you know when?
I'm not sure. Possibly when she went to bed. Possibly sometime during the night.
Trying to get help. Perhaps she was coming to me for help.
There wasn't anything that you could possibly have done.
Heart massage. Kiss of life. There's always something.
Even if I'd been there, I couldn't have done anything.
If she knew someone with her, be with someone.
You swallow this. Good. Your son. Miss Hyde can't find his address. We should get in touch with him.
Who?
Your son.
Oh, yes, baby. Someone will have to tell him.
Have you got his address somewhere?
My wife's diary, she's got it.
Right. Would you like me to tell him?
Yes. Can I see her?
I'd rather you didn't. Not just now. You stay in bed for a while and I'll go and telephone David.
Your predecessor seemed perfectly happy, sir.
I don't think that's particularly relevant. A coroner can't possibly operate efficiently without a qualified officer. I don't think your most junior uniform constable is qualified in any way.
Well, quite honestly, sir, we can't afford to spare...
Can't afford to spare what, Chief Inspector? I'm not the registrar. I'm not compiling statistics. I'm meant to ensure that a secret homicide does not go undetected. I would have thought a detective was an essential factor in the efficient functioning of my office. What about him? He doesn't look particularly busy.
Sergeant Ash is one of the busiest officers on the strength. He's also one of my most senior detectives.
Exactly what I want. Well, that's settled then. Thank you very much, Mr. Fleming. It's nice to work with a really cooperative officer. Sergeant, perhaps you'd take me down to the mortuary. I've never seen a post-mortem. I think perhaps it's time I did.
It's Professor Hardy. Yes, take him to Professor Hardy. He'll enjoy that. I'll phone and say you're coming.
Thank you.
He should be asleep. I've given him a tranquilizer.
How is he?
Shattered. Totally bewildered. He doesn't really understand what's happened.
What did happen?
Well, your mother died without warning in the middle of the night. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, either just getting into bed or trying to get up. I'll have to let the coroner know. There may be a post-mortem.
God. Why?
Oh, there has to be. She's not been ill. I have to have been attending a patient regularly and at least once in the last fortnight before I can give a death certificate. unless I'm absolutely certain. And I'm afraid I'm not.
What do you think?
Probably a coronary. She's tired. She's been overdoing it, looking after your father. I wasn't expecting it, but I can't say I'm altogether surprised.
There wasn't anything you could do.
No. There wasn't anything your father could do either. You mustn't blame him.
Why should I?
He's blaming himself. He keeps saying that it was his fault. I should warn you, there's a lot of sleeping pills around the house. Quite enough.
Does he have the right to decide for himself?
He's in a state of shock. He isn't capable of taking a rational decision.
How's his rheumatism?
It's getting worse. Do you know he fell last month? He lay on the floor for most of the night.
She never said anything to me.
I'm worried about his heart. Acute rheumatism can lead to disease of the heart.
Daddy?
David. It's ghastly. Absolutely bloody ghastly. It's so awful.
I know.
I wanted to be with her. God, why wasn't it me?
She didn't suffer.
No. No, that's the only thing. She was trying to get help. She was getting out of bed to call me.
Come on. Come and sit down. Even if she had called you, there wasn't anything you could do.
Well, we don't know. We'll never know. I mean, I might have... Well, at least I'd have been with her.
David, do you want to tell him about the post-mortem?
Should I?
Well, it's up to you.
Are you sure there'll be one?
Depends on the coroner.
But your report, and presumably he'll do what you recommend.
Probably.
He'll want to know about the funeral.
2 or 3 days. Try to persuade him not to go. He's depressed enough as it is. There's one problem, though. The pathologist will probably want to ring up and ask 1 or 2 questions. What he had to eat last night, what time, that kind of thing. Routine questions, but they might upset him.
Who'll do the post-mortem?
Oh, I don't know.
Could your husband do it?
I suppose he could.
Well, I'd rather he did. At least he'd show a little respect.
Right, I'll ask him. Do you want me to explain to him?
Oh, it's all right. I'll make up something convincing.
Right, let's get on now. I'll come in this evening, see how he is.
The problem is to know not only how they die, but when they die.
Well, the transplant thing made it fairly clear that you don't really know what death actually is.
There you are, Mr. Harris. Ah, look at that. There's a classic example of thrombosis. Look, see the thrombus? Blood clot?
Pretty straightforward.
Oh, for purposes of your certificate, yeah. Died of thrombosis. That's all you need to know. What I want to know is what caused the thrombus. Does a pathologist concentrate on what caused the death, or does he go back to what caused the cause? Is it enough for me to tell the coroner how and when somebody died?
Oh, sure. I mean, if you take that to its logical conclusion, in the case of homicide, you'll be telling me what you think caused the killer to do it.
Oh, certainly. The state of the killer's mental and physical health is an essential factor in determining how the victim died.
I should have thought that was a job for the police.
So do the police.
Oh, thank you. We don't usually use these glasses. They're difficult to put down.
I'll change it.
No, it's all right. The ones we usually use, she keeps in the kitchen.
What about Miss Hyde? Would she like a drink?
Well, I don't expect so. I mean, she doesn't usually.
Perhaps today. She's almost as shattered as you.
Yeah, that's what she'd like you to think. Oh, well. Well, I expect she is. She was very fond of your mother.
Yes.
So what are you going to do?
Do?
Well, now. I mean, I don't expect you want to hang about here, do you?
Well, there's a lot to do. I must start telephoning people.
Well, what about Joan? She won't like it being left on her own with the children.
Well, she's taken them to her sister's.
What about tonight?
She'll go home tonight.
Well, I mean, I'll be all right. You don't need to worry about me.
You can't live here by yourself.
Why not?
You just can't. You might fall again. Anyway, you'll be lonely.
Well, I'll ask Miss Hyde if she'll come in the evening.
No, I think it'd be much better if you came and lived with us.
Good God, no. Well, I mean, you've got your own lives to live. No, it's kind of you, but I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Why not?
Well, for one thing, your house is all steps, you know. I can't manage steps. Anyway, my life is here. Why should I move?
You'll be terribly lonely.
Well, there's Miss Hyde.
Miss Hyde can come in as often as you like, but it's not the same as someone living here. If you fall, or going to bed, for instance, you might lie there all night. And as for the steps, well, I can turn my studio into a flat for you.
And where would you work, I'd like to know?
I can rent another studio.
No. Definitely no. Anyway, I mean, we talked about it. She always dreaded being left on her own. Thank God it was her, not me. I don't think she could have stood it being left on her own like this. Oh, we agreed we'd ask Miss Hyde to come in. Oh, it isn't going to be for very long. I'm not going to live very long, you know, that's certain. God knows why it was her and not me. I mean, she still enjoyed life. I don't. She could have had years of active life if it had been me. Gone out more again, seen people again. You know, most of her friends avoided her these last few years, wouldn't come to the house even. Oh, well, I expect it was my fault. Why, I never took to that kind of thing. I mean, bridge, gossip, going to the cinema.
I'll have a word with Dr. Hardy, but I'm pretty certain she'll agree with me. Wouldn't be safe. If you won't come and live with us, then perhaps we'll have to think of getting you a permanent housekeeper. Living in.
I can't afford it. Quite honestly, I mean, we went into all this. No, you don't need to worry about me. I mean, have you any idea what it had cost? About £20 a week. Oh, if I find I can't manage on my own, well, I expect I'll go into a home. You don't need to worry.
Lunch is ready, Major. Shall I bring it in now?
Can't say I feel much like eating.
Well, you've got to keep your strength up.
God knows what for.
Yes, thank you, Miss Hyde.
And if I could have a word with you after, Mr. Williams.
Well, now, if you like.
No, have your lunch first, otherwise it'll spoil. Afterwards.
Hello, Chief Inspector.
Doctor.
Is this a professional visit?
Kind of.
Right, well, sit down and tell me what I've done.
Professional for you, I meant, not for me.
Oh.
As your doctor, I want to... I think under normal circumstances I go to my own doctor, but he happens to be the police surgeon.
Oh, never mind. I'll treat you as a private patient. Nobody needs to know.
Ah, good. I've had a hint that I'm in line for promotion. My oldest boy's going to university next year. At least he should be. The extra money would come in useful. I'd like him to have a bit more than just the grant would give him.
Chief Inspector, what's wrong with you?
I've got this Pain in my stomach all the time. Can't keep my food down and losing weight.
Right. Coat and shirt off and lie down on there, please.
It's all right, he's having a rest.
Well, I was wondering what he was going to do now, sir.
I don't know, to be quite honest. I've tried to make him come and live with my wife and me. He won't. He might change his mind later.
Well, I doubt it, Mr. Williams. You don't mind my speaking open, do you? He's very fond of you both. That goes without saying. But many's the time I've heard him say he'd never do that. Wouldn't want to move again. Change his ways at his time of life.
It was talk, that's all. Now that it's actually happened...
No, sir. There's your wife, too. Not that he doesn't like her. I'm sure he does.
Well, I have to think of something else, then. He was saying maybe you could come in twice a day from now on.
Yes, well, that's the other thing. I mean, I've no doubt you are going to be making changes, and well, I thought I ought to tell you. You see, my own father's getting on a bit, and, well, he needs looking after. I'll go on coming in until you find somebody else. Thought it best if I told you now, though, and then you can make your own arrangements.
Hello, Miss Hyde. Darling, I'm sorry I'm so late.
Darling, Miss Hyde's been telling me she won't be able to go on working here.
Yes, well, it's my own father, Mrs. Williams. He's too old now for me to leave him.
Oh, dear. How is he?
I don't know, Chief Inspector. You'll have an X-ray. Could be half a dozen things.
Such as?
It's a bit early to say yet.
I mean, indigestion, ulcer, cancer, have you got any idea?
Well, you've been overworking ever since I first met you. You're worried about the possibilities of promotion. You could have worried yourself into nervous indigestion. Then, of course, you'd start to worry about that, convince yourself it was something worse. The whole thing could build into a vicious circle. The X-rays will clear up some of the possibilities for us. Now then, nothing to eat or drink from midnight tonight. Liquids only, no alcohol for the rest of today. I'll get you an appointment at the hospital for tomorrow afternoon. You'll have to have a barium meal. And then rest quietly for an hour or so. Don't want you dashing around immediately afterwards. Now, I want you to take this to the hospital with you. And don't worry.
Miss Hyde was absolutely certain he wouldn't. I can understand it, really. He's lived here for 10 years. Why should he move?
Well, what are the alternatives?
A nursing home or someone living in, I'd say.
He can't go into a nursing home.
He might have to.
Well, if he's not prepared to come and live with us, he certainly won't like leaving here for a nursing home.
What about a hotel?
Can he afford a hotel?
I can help. It's not likely to be for all that long.
He could quite easily live for 15 years.
Well,
You have 3 children to put through school, David. How on earth can you afford to support your father, too?
I'm doing very well. I think you get an allowance or a tax rebate for supporting an elderly parent. I could manage.
For a year or two. Yes, you probably could. What were you thinking of?
Well, bedroom, bathroom and sitting room in a residential hotel somewhere.
Have you any idea what that costs?
I'm sure he could afford it.
At least $2,000 a year. That's what Johnny's father had to pay. Do you know what your father's income is?
Must be 1,200. Add the income from the sale of the house.
It could get 10,000. Say 500 a year.
Well, that's not too bad. That's about 1,700 a year.
Before tax. No, he's better off here. Financially, at least.
Perhaps if you asked him to live with us.
Darling, you're very sweet and very naive. If you don't know that I am 90% of the reason he won't come, then you must be blinder than I thought you were.
And what is the answer?
I don't know.
A solicitor doesn't get much experience of the medical side of forensic medicine. Not even if he specializes in criminal law, as I did. I read through my predecessor's files, of course. They're not much help. And once I start holding inquests, I shan't be able to attend more than about 1 in 10 post-mortems.
Well, that's more than most coroners manage. 10 years ago, we had a coroner here. He never attended a single autopsy in his whole period of service. He was responsible for the classic remark, you have to be particularly careful in investigating the deaths of coloured people, because you can never tell when they turn blue.
You mentioned time of death. The post-mortem reports contain some pretty confident statements.
Oh, not from me. If a pathologist once lets a coroner bully him about time of death, well, he'll be in trouble in court. I always allow myself a generous margin of safety.
All right, then. I'd like to know how you reach your estimates.
Hardy, we've finished here.
Oh, that's too strong for me, David. Half that. I should be taking my sleeping pills in half an hour. You have to be very careful with alcohol.
Like that?
Yeah, that's it. Top that up with soda. Will Joan be... I was going to say, would Joan be all right on her own?
Goodness, yes. I left her on her own for a month when I went to New York last year.
Thank you.
A few nights aren't going to worry her.
I've been thinking about what I'm going to do. I'm going to die.
You're what?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? The only thing I was staying alive for was your mother. Now that she's gone, I've got nothing to live for. I might just as well be dead.
Nonsense. There's Joan and me for a start. And the children.
It isn't going to make a damn bit of difference to you whether I live or die, is it?
Yes, it is. Of course it is. We're very fond of you.
In fact, I'm going to be a hell of a problem to you. You'd be better off if I was dead.
Nonsense. I can't see any reason why you shouldn't go on living for another 10 years.
I don't want to. I'm in pain from this damned rheumatism. My sight's going. I don't read very well anymore. I watch television, but I can't understand half of what they put on. No one comes to see us anymore. I'm bored. Why go on? I'm a burden to myself and to everybody else.
Hello? Dr. Hardy speaking.
David Williams here. Doctor, I'm sorry to wake you like this, but my father seems to be in a lot of pain. I heard him groaning.
Have you any idea what he's suffering from?
Tell him I'm out.
Well, he's had rheumatism. Fairly severe osteoarthritis for some years now.
This isn't rheumatism.
Rheumatic fever, I think. I told you I was worried about his heart. The more acute the rheumatic attack, the more likely it is to affect the lining of the heart.
God almighty. What happens now?
Well, I've given him an injection. I'll come back and see how he is in the morning. If his fever's still up, he may have to go into hospital for an ECG.
He's not in any danger.
Not immediate danger. He should sleep pretty soundly now. So don't try and wake him up till I call in the morning.
There's nothing I ought to do for him.
No, with any luck, he'll sweat the fever out tonight. If he should wake up before I call in the morning, he'll be pretty thirsty. Don't give him anything more than 1 glass of water to drink, nothing else. He won't feel like eating anything anyway.
Dr. Hardy thinks it may have been brought on by the shock of Mummy's death. I don't know, everything seems to have a psychological cause nowadays.
What happens now? Hospital?
He's all right now. It may recur. The pain's bound to go on. Send him to hospital, it's so final.
He'll be looked after properly.
He doesn't even know that he's seriously ill. Well, he thinks it's the rheumatism.
He must have some idea.
If he goes into hospital, he'll have to know why.
Not necessarily. Half the people dying of cancer don't know what's wrong with them.
Well, if he isn't told why, he'll think I'm putting him away or something. Anyway, he doesn't want to leave here.
How long?
Before... we don't know. If the fever recurs regularly or goes even higher than last night...
What was it last night?
102. A bit over.
And now?
Around normal. Well, he could live for years, though.
Needing full-time nursing the whole time.
We hope not.
Well, you're not spending the next couple of years here looking after him. And he needs looking after. He can't afford to go into a nursing home full-time. He'll have to go into hospital.
Sorry. That's even more expensive than some nursing homes.
On national health?
That's just as bad as a nursing home. He can't afford to go into a private ward, and I don't want him to go into a public ward.
It's the only answer.
Perhaps, when it comes to the end.
You rightly said we don't know what death is. Death is a scientific fact. That's all we do know. See, life is maintained by the interdependent action of the brain, the heart, and the lungs. And when one stops, unless it's reactivated by modern resuscitative methods, the others stop rapidly, and life ceases. And when the individual body dies, it's called somatic death, and when the cells of the tissues die, it's called molecular death, and when the mind dies, that is, of course, if we accept the principle of the Trinity, it's called spiritual death. But these three deaths do not occur simultaneously, for the life of the cells continues for a variable period after the death of the person or the somatic death. But when does spiritual death occur? A famous physician has written that to die is as natural as to be born. And of the latter we're allowed no personal memory, of the former we have no chance to leave a record, but comments from good observers who have been reclaimed from the seeming menace of death, and the story they tell is that the active state of consciousness was like a dream, and they knew little or no suffering. Have you ever seen anybody die?
Yes, in the war. Learned a bit, some of them.
No, that's different. You see, when someone dies in war, in an act of violence, he experiences a kind of total disintegration. It's very difficult to differentiate. But in a terminal hospital, say, does the mind die before the body and the molecules, or after? We are told that when the brain is starved of oxygen, the brain cells die. But you know, only last year, a yogi was he was put into an airtight box, and he stayed there for many hours without any apparent inconvenience, simply by knocking down the necessary amount of oxygen for life to 1/4 of the required minimum. So he lived not by taking oxygen, but, as you might say, by taking thought. And that's knocked a hole through one theory.
Yeah, still, but presumably the general principle still applies. We're not going to get many yogis dying around here.
No. But we do seem to be losing the classic definitions we've had for so long without finding anything to replace them.
Stick a knife into somebody's heart, and I presume you know he's dead?
Not necessarily. Not with modern heart surgery. No, the new definition will involve chemistry. The chemical causes of the physical changes that we observe. Why muscles contract in rigor mortis. What causes, amongst other things. Cadaveric spasm.
Cadaveric spasm? What's that?
Oh, it's an instantaneous rigor. It's not common, but it's usually a spontaneous, nervous reaction of someone who thinks that he's going to die. It usually occurs in the hand, or it can occur in the muscles of the mouth and the jaw. It's very common in suicides. Now, look at that. Now, he was grasping that knife so strongly, it took a great deal of strength on my part to make his fingers loosen it. Oh, we don't know. But it seems as though the extremity of the emotion causes a nervous muscular spasm.
Does it just stay like that?
No. Make things much easier if it did. But it passes off like ordinary rigor mortis within 36 to 48 hours.
Is anything wrong?
No.
Oh, you seem very restless. I can hear you moving around all the time.
I'm sorry. Am I disturbing you?
Just I didn't get much sleep last night, that's all. What did the doctor think was wrong with me?
Nothing very much.
She's a bloody awful doctor, then.
Well, she thought it was brought about by a kind of nervous reaction.
Well, you can tell her from me that it wasn't. I thought I was dying.
Well, you're not, I'm glad to say.
I don't want to go into a nursing home.
There's no reason why you should.
Well, I'm just telling you. I shall be dead soon anyway. I might just as well do it here.
Don't you think you should have a night nurse?
At £5 a night? That's £2,000 a year. No, of course I can't.
With me helping a bit?
I am not going to accept charity from my own son. Thank you very much.
Sandra, ring Chief Inspector Fleming for me, will you? Ask him to come and see me tomorrow, if he can.
Harris, the new coroner. Why do they always appoint laymen?
They don't. Not as much as they used to.
Oh, well, I suppose he's better than most. He is interested. He's trying to learn. He's infuriated, Fleming. Yeah, carried off Ash under his arm to become coroner's officer. Well, that won't last long. I hear that Fleming may be going to get promotion.
Yes, so he told me.
What? When?
Oh, I met him in the street the other day.
You mean you just met him in the street? He goes like that?
No, not exactly, but he hinted vaguely that he'd heard a rumour. Something like that.
Oh. Harris is a very persuasive character. Oh, you can bet that it was all fixed with the chief constable, the kidnapping of Ash.
Poor Fleming.
What street was it?
Street?
Where you met Fleming.
Mind your own business.
And how is Major William?
He's far too well, really. There's nothing much I can do for him. He's suffering from incipient rheumatic fever, he's lonely, and he's got nothing to live for. He told me twice today that he wished he was dead.
I feel a bit sick today, but...
Tired, that's all.
And I'm rather sleepy.
Exhaustion. It's the strain. Here. Here's your pills. You've only taken one. Come on. One more.